Welcome to Fleet Safety Geeks. I'm Bob.
And I'm Phil, and we welcome you to our podcast.
All right, welcome to the next episode of Fleet Safety Geeks. This is Bob Mossing and Phil Mosier. Hey, Phil, how are you?
I'm doing well, my friend. How are you doing?
Doing great. And surprise, we're on video.
I mean, I can actually see you as we're talking here, Bob. You know,
It makes conversations
cool.
so much easier.
It does.
Absolutely. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see how this turns out. For any listener, we still will have all the audio version of this podcast on all the different platforms, such as Apple, Google, Spotify. It's my understanding that Spotify is supporting video podcasts, so we'll try and have that out there. And then we're also going to have in the future a YouTube channel that will put our podcast out with the video as well. So we're trying to doing this test before the multi-part series of the Fleet Safety Policy podcasts that are coming up, and we have a lot of great guests, and we're doing some planning on that. So very, very excited to get that going. So what are we talking about today, Phil?
We are going to talk today about road rage, and I think it ties in nicely with the last podcast, Bob, when we were talking about personal safety. I know we touched upon it when we were near the conclusion of the last podcast, but I thought this would be, a good topic to cover because, again, the numbers are up, and it's kind of shocking, and we'll discuss that as we go along here.
Yeah. We talked a little bit last week. The example I gave was kind of a shocking one. It was like right near where I lived in Michigan. To have something like that happen so close to home is crazy. But you hear, and I think we're going to talk a little bit today about some of the numbers. Like you said, they're going up. This stuff is happening all over the place. Well, to get started, if we wanted to define road rage, AAA defines it as road rage occurs when a driver experiences extreme aggression or anger intending to create or cause verbal or physical harm. So while we're driving on the road, especially as a fleet driver or in our personal vehicles, we really don't want to run into anybody that wants to cause us verbal or physical harm, right?
Yeah, I mean, you never know who you're dealing with out there, right? You never know who that other person is and what they're capable of.
Right.
So, we'll talk about how to handle those situations, but I think it's really important that we discuss how to avoid those situations. If it does happen, we'll tell you what we suggest to do. But as with everything that we discussed during this podcast, Bob, I always tell people this: listen, you have to do what is best for you when you take into consideration all of the factors that you're dealing with at any given point in time. The information that we're going to provide is just common sense, safety, but you have to make your own decisions.
That's right. Some of the stuff that we talk about can get very sensitive, and if it is ever seen as any kind of advice, we have to be careful to put some sort of disclaimer out there because we don't want anybody to come back to us and say, hey, we followed Fleet Safety Geeks advice, but this still happened. We're trying to provide best practice and what, as a tip that you can think of to do. But again, as you said, whatever is the best thing to do in your situation, that's what you should do.
Right.
All right. Well, what are some of the most common types of road rage? I think, we talked about the table for one.
The infamous hand gesture, right? Or hand gestures, tailgating, yelling, honking, just driving aggressively, basically aiming your vehicle, right? I mean, and here's the thing: people also need to realize that if you do any of this stuff, you're using your vehicle basically like a weapon. You can be charged, and in many areas that is a misdemeanor, or at least a misdemeanor if it goes beyond the typical tailgating or aggressive driving. Then you might get into a felony area if somebody gets hurt. But you don't want to be involved in any of this stuff. Just avoid it, right?
Right.
But and whenever I see a reckless driving charge, or whenever I charge that's similar to a DWI. Okay, that's similar to an impaired driving. Reckless driving is the willful and wanton disregard for safety. And when people get involved in these road rage situations, that's exactly what we're dealing with, the willful and wanton disregard for safety.
Yeah. And from a fleet point of view, when we get into our fleet safety policy, we're going to learn about how we score drivers and rate their risk of being involved in a preventable accident. And reckless driving, like you said, it's kind of classified as DWI. If you're cited for reckless driving, that can be one that puts a driver immediately at high risk and could put them at a position where they would not be eligible to drive for their company, depending on how their policy is written and how they enforce it. So, it's really, really important from a fleet perspective, since this is Fleet Safety Geeks, to talk about that. But from a personal safety perspective, regardless how anybody's charged, we don't want anybody out there, involved in somebody who's going to, target their vehicle or point their vehicle as a weapon. So, so we talked about the one last week. It actually was a murder. Somebody, got shot when they approached the vehicle asking, "What's your problem?" So we have, some statistics that you've looked up that you have in your back pocket. You always seem to have all the best statistics. When somebody dies as a result of road rage, that's murder, right? It's not.
Yeah, and it would be, probably not even like a third degree. It'd be a second degree, which is life imprisonment. Because you're making a decision to do that. It's not like a situation where you did something that you didn't realize that it could cause much harm or death. But if you're enraged and you're using your vehicle like that, or if you're driving very, very aggressively towards somebody, you could get charged with a second degree homicide, and you're not going to get out of prison. You're going to spend the rest of your life behind bars. And you know what? If you do something like that, you should spend the rest of your life behind bars. Somebody lost their life because you couldn't control your anger. And that's what I say when you're out there driving around. If somebody is being aggressive towards you, you have to react properly. Avoid it. And we're going to talk about that as we go along here.
Yeah. Last year wasn't a good year for road rage, and you've said repeatedly that since the pandemic, people are having potentially, it seems pretty evident that people are having some mental health issues, possibly self-medicating. The pandemic was not healthy for anyone in terms of just anybody that actually got the virus, but also just on a mental point of view and how people handled it. Can you talk about that a little bit and how you think that might have impacted some of the numbers last year?
So over a 7-year period, according to AAA, road rage accounted for 218 murders and 12,610 injuries. But in 2021 alone, there were 44 people per month shot and killed or wounded as a result of road rage. And that equates to 518 victims in 1 year. The 7-year period prior to that, 218. So you see, the numbers are just scary. I mean, really scary. And anybody who's been out there driving around, you know what I'm talking about. Doesn't it seem that people are just far more aggressive? It sure does seem that way to me. And at first I thought, when I start driving again, on a regular, daily basis, after the pandemic, we started opening up, I was thinking, well, maybe I'm just not used to, people being around me like this. But that's not it. And people are driving really aggressively, and we have to adjust our driving to avoid these technical term knuckleheads. I mean, it's just not safe.
Yeah, I love your technical terms. Some of them are really
in-depth. Yeah, I love using my technical stuff.
but it's a good way to say it, just being knuckleheads. Yeah. I run into knuckleheads all the time as well, and it's really frustrating because a lot of times, if I'm going to go on the road or get on the highway or travel a long distance, I usually have my family with me. And, just leaving Cleveland to go to Michigan a couple of weeks ago, it's Friday evening, it's rush hour. It's never really a good time to travel on the highways, leaving a large city. But, everybody had to be somewhere so fast. It's like, where do you need to be? I mean, where do you need to be that you're going to drive like that to get there, 30 seconds sooner? But you gave an example before this podcast, and about someone who entered a entrance ramp and just cut across 4 lanes of traffic and did what they needed to do. The exact same thing happened when I'm merging kind of a zipper lane, and somebody just, gets out there right in front of me. I had to slam on my brakes with my kids and my dog in the car. And, it's like people are going to be out there, killing somebody. If I had reacted to that or honked my horn or, gave the table for one symbol, I could have, instigated a road rage, thing there. So I think we're going to talk a little bit more about how we can avoid some of this, but some of this gets into just being a defensive driver. We talked about it last week, just on personal safety. Just remove yourself from the situation, let it go, is probably going to be some of the best advice we can give. So you talked about the 518, but there's also, the gun violence on here is surprising. Is everybody carrying their gun with them while they drive? I mean,
no, I think there are just as many guns now as there were, before the pandemic. I don't think that's that people are toting guns more or whatever. I think
but they're using them more.
They're using them more, and so the statistics show that road rage deaths due to gun violence have doubled compared to pre-pandemic levels. And but here's the thing, though, Bob. So AAA, again, in their studies, found that 8 out of 10 drivers demonstrate aggressive driving behaviors when they're driving. 8 out of 10. So a good way to avoid road rage with other people is don't drive aggressively. You're going to make somebody angry. And as I said earlier, you never know who you're dealing with. Are they really mentally stable, or are they having a really bad day? Or are you the last straw with that person who you just cut off? And now they're really angry, and they're going to take everything that's going wrong in their life. Yeah, they're going to take it out on you. So the best way to avoid this stuff is, it comes down to the driver safety stuff that we always talk about, right, Bob? I mean, it's like drive safely, but not only so you don't get involved in a crash, so that you don't get involved in one of these incidents. So there again, the benefit of being a safe and defensive driver.
Yeah, for sure. At some point, we're going to say don't drive selfish either, but that can be a part of it. Just to throw it out there.
Well, it always comes back to that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Don't be a selfish driver. So should we get into it? I want to talk about the defensive driving things that we think, we discussed this with Bob and I, just a little background here. We always discuss what we're going to discuss, prior to starting these podcasts. And one of the things that we discussed is, tailgating. That is, who loves to be tailgated? Oh, isn't that great? Oh, man, I just love when somebody's just riding right on my bumper. I mean, that is just great. No, people get really angry about that. So don't tailgate. And if you have a tailgater, get over, let the knucklehead go by, and then go back. I've been on 2-lane roads where I've pulled into a parking lot, let the tailgater go by, and then I get back on the road. And guess what? They're no longer in my mirror. And yes, the other thing is too, Bob, we always say you have to pay attention. You have to stay focused on your driving. If you're being tailgated, you know where your attention is? In your mirror.
Right.
I'll relate this story. I like telling my stories too, Bob. You know that. So when I was learning to drive, I had my permit. My dad took me out driving, and I had a lady tailgating me. And I started commenting about it. He said, forget about it. Just watch what you're doing here. And I, looked ahead again, and I looked in my mirror again, and there she was. And I said, I'm going the speed limit. He said, pull over. So I pulled over. He said, is she going to pay your bills? I said, what? He said, you're so focused on her, you're going to hit something. Is she going to take care of that for you? I said, no. He said, she doesn't exist. What a great lesson. Thanks, Dad. So when somebody's tailgating you like that, don't let them, there it is again, Bob, don't let them drive your car. Right?
Yep. And that's
I've been on the highway, I get into another lane, I let them go by. If I'm on a 2-lane road, I seriously will pull into a parking lot, Just let them go by, and then I don't just like pull right out and start giving it to them. Huh? It's like, hey, how do you like it, right? Now that don't do that, right? Let them go by, and now they're out of your mirror. So tailgating's a big thing. Don't tailgate. 3-second falling distance. If you don't know how to use that, pass a mark. Car in front of you passes a mark. Start counting 1001, 1002, 1003. If you get to that mark before 1003, you're too close. That's a good, safe driving technique, but also it will, help eliminate a lot of those road rage situations that you don't want to create. So, tailgating is a big one.
Yeah, tailgating is a big one. But that's one of my favorite things I've ever learned from you is don't let someone else drive your car. I say it all the time. I'm teaching my daughter how to drive. I'm telling her. I tell other people that. It just makes so much sense. It's just one of the best pieces of advice that you can get. Because I was going to say, if someone is tailgating you, don't brake check. Right, because that could create a situation where one, you can get involved in an accident. It could actually be your fault, even though they might be following too close, or it could create the road rage incident. But also, it's letting someone else drive your car. Right? Why would you do that? They're basically making you do that. I like the advice: get off the road, let them pass, and just let them go.
What I will say is this: one of the things that we profess where I work is use what we call ready brake. And ready brake is like if you see somebody who's maybe going to pull out, just apply just a little bit of brake pressure so that your brake lights light up, and then somebody behind you, they might be more prepared. They're not going to tag you if you do have to jam on your brakes if somebody pulls out or whatever. So if you see a situation where you may have to brake, I think it's a good idea. But if you do that, like slam on the brakes thing, like you're going to give them a brake check and get them off your tail, that does not work. It just makes people behind you angry. And guess what? They're going to tailgate you even more.
Yeah, that's right. That's entirely different than the notifying somebody of an incident that's happening up ahead or just making sure they're trying to get their attention. I'm talking the real brake check, slamming on your brakes, hitting it hard, making them slam on their brakes.
Exactly. Yep, that doesn't work.
It can create a dangerous situation. Someone's going to get injured.
Yep. Make a bad situation worse.
Yeah. If it wasn't road rage before, it definitely could turn into road rage.
Oh, you'll escalate it real quick.
Yeah. Other aggressive driving that could cause this. Speeding. I mean, just speeding. We talked about that a little bit, just merging onto the highway too fast. But also just speeding. And you also see, maybe it's not road rage, definitely aggressive driving, but, all these little hot rod cars, I feel sound like an old man talking about these hot rod cars and these kids driving down, damn kids.
Tuners, Bob.
But I mean, they're like racing on the highway and out of the blue, you're going the speed limit or maybe a few miles above. Everybody around you is fine. And you check your mirrors, there's no one there. And then all of a sudden someone's going past you 100 miles an hour. And there's a series of them. Maybe that's not a road rage thing, but that's real aggressive driving. It's the wrong place to
No, I think, again, Bob, these are the violations that lead to the road rage, right? So I think that aggressive speeding is probably the most egregious or most often and the most common type of aggressive driving. And there are any number of reasons why people speed. I think one of the main reasons is because it's their habit. People who speed all the time, if they go the speed limit, guess what? They feel weird. It feels like they're crawling if they're doing the speed limit.
Right.
Oh, we're going too slow. Oh my goodness. It's the speed limit 65. But if I'm not doing 85, I feel like I'm not, the speed limit's 25 through this neighborhood. Oh my goodness, I have to do 45 because they feel, that it's not right. They're going too slow. Why? Because that's their habit. Break that habit. Get rid of that one, because they're using camera enforcement a heck of a lot more now, and that's indiscriminate. I don't care if you're running late for, work or you're running late to pick up your child. The camera doesn't care. You're just going to get the ticket in the mail.
Yep.
So that's one of the reasons. Another reason is just running late. People are running late. Give yourself enough time. And if you are running late, let's say you're a business driver and you're running late, find a safe and legal place to park, call ahead and say, hey, I'm running late. Worst case scenario, Bob, they're going to tell you, hey, you can't get here on time? You're going to have to reschedule. Best case scenario, see you when you get here. And now guess what? The pressure's off. And now you're not going to have to drive aggressively. You're not going to have to speed like that. Mm-hmm. And then I always say the third reason why people speed is just because they're just not focused.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times, and we're all guilty of this, you look down, you're going, oh my goodness, I didn't realize I was speeding that fast, going that fast.
Yeah.
Yep, it's just, pay attention, watch the speed limit signs, watch the reduced speed signs. Don't be aggressive, don't be speeding, don't be tailgating.
Yep. All great advice. That's awesome. What else is on there? Cutting people off. We talked about that, getting on a highway and doing that.
Right.
That's obviously going to make somebody upset. It's going to feel like they're putting lives at risk. But also,
Right.
You have pulling out on here, like pulling out of a parking lot and yeah.
Side street, parking lot, just, you're right on top of them, they pull out. Well, doesn't that make you happy?
Yeah.
So if you pull out in front of somebody, like I said, who's having a bad day, and now they have to, hit their brakes, or they'll zoom around you and pass you even in a no passing zone, not good. You're setting yourself up again for a road rage incident. Mm-hmm. So, give it plenty of space. The way the vehicle code reads is you have to have an assured clear distance. If you pull out in front of somebody and they have to even, come off the gas, you shouldn't have pulled out.
Right.
So make sure there's enough distance before you pull out. Okay. And the last one I put on there is failure to use the turn signal. I don't know if people don't use their turn signals because they're afraid they're going to use up all their blinker fluid, or I shouldn't say these things when you're drinking coffee, but or they're afraid their electric bill is going to go up if they use it. I mean, come on, people. Use the signal. Give it plenty of signal. And this is not just when you're turning. This is when you're merging. This is when you're changing lanes, especially when you're changing lanes. I see people who, give the one quick blink and then zip in front of you. Again, when you're merging in, and that's a cutting off thing, right? Mm-hmm. Make sure that you, again, have an assured clear distance. You should be able to, if you have an inside rear view mirror, do not start coming back into that lane until you can see the vehicle you're passing in your inside mirror. And you say, well, I could see I was past them in my right side mirror. Not good enough. That you can see it in your inside mirror. And that way, then you have enough distance, and signal your intent to merge back in. Keep the signal on until you're completely in, and then please turn that off. I mean, there are some places in the country where it's the land of the eternal turn signal. These things, they're running down the road and the signal's on forever. And then you don't know if they're turning or whatever. And then they finally do make that left turn in front of you and going, well, I had my signal on you. Well, you did for 4 miles. So use your turn signals and use them properly.
Yeah. That's one of the first things I learned when I was learning how to drive is, when I got on the highway and when I could pass a vehicle and get back in their lane, was making sure that I could see their front bumper in my rear view mirror.
Perfect. And that's exactly right.
And I still use it today, right? Because it's the safest and right thing to do. But I got to tell you, there's somebody behind me who's tailgating, trying to go fast, weaving, back and forth. And I'm waiting to get back in. I'm not going to let someone else drive my car. I'm not going to go any faster than I already am. I'm going to pass that car when it's ready. And I have my right turn blinker on, not using up my blinker fluid. I have it on. I'm letting the person know I'm going to, get back in their lane. And I wait until I can see that bumper, and that person that's behind me is trying to get me to go. So they're like, go already, but just keep doing it the right way. Yep. And that's the best way to do that. So, yeah. Yep.
That's exactly right, Bob. Again, you're not letting that person drive your car.
Right.
And then the other thing you took about it merges, right? When I drive into work, there are a couple places that comes down, from 2 lanes into a single lane, and that's whether that's onto another ramp to go to another road or whatever. And, people will hang out in that left lane, and you might get the urge to say, well, no, you didn't get back in line. You didn't get in line as quickly as I did, so I'm not letting you in. Okay, is everybody supposed to ride in that single lane for 2 miles until they get to that merge point because you don't want to let them in? Let them in.
Right.
There's a thing called a zipper merge, right, yep, which makes traffic flow a heck of a lot easier. And if you think about the way a zipper works is one car goes, the next one pulls in.
Absolutely.
Next car, and it's just you merge in. And that's the way it works. And if you do that at construction zones or even roads that are just designed that way, use the zipper merge. It's okay. If they get in front of you, so what? Right? Again, but these are the things that you can do. It's like, I'm going to keep you hanging out there. So let's say you do that and you're successful, and you keep that person hanging out there and you don't let them in, and then they finally merge behind you. Now you have an angry driver right behind you.
Yep. Yeah.
Does that lead to a road rage situation? It could. I'd much rather have that person out in front of me.
Yeah. And as you said, you don't
so
know.
Let it go.
You don't know what's going through that person's mind, what that day,
Exactly.
the day that person's having. And if you inadvertently create a situation where that triggers that person, it could be really bad. Another one that isn't on here that it probably happens in a lot of cities, but I didn't notice it so much when I lived in Michigan, but it happens all the time in Cleveland. People use that horn like it's the right thing to do. I mean, the horn should not be used to tell people that the light is green a half second after it
It's a warning device.
Yes, exactly.
Right? There are a number of ways to mitigate or to avoid a crash from this, steering, braking, accelerating, and then audible. You can blow the horn if somebody's not looking, and you blow the horn to let them know, hey, I'm here. Get off your phone, put down your Big Mac, don't hit, don't pull out, and you can blow the horn and warn them. Great, that's what it's for.
Mm-hmm.
But if a person doesn't take off as soon as the light turns green, just avoid the urge to just lay on it, right? I mean, again, and if that person behind you is doing that, just think, well, they must be having a really bad day, and just let it go, right?
But if you do it and the person in front of you who didn't go a half second after the light turned green, you don't know if it's going to trigger them, what kind of day they're having as well. So, don't cause it. And if it happens to you, don't engage. So that's going to be the theme of what we talk about here. In fact, right there, it's don't let aggression, impact you. Just let it go. Right. Pull off the road, let them go by. And the more you engage, the more it's just going to create a dangerous situation.
Correct.
So you got on here, things we talked about, the hand gestures, the international table for one is always going to set somebody off. Probably not the thing that you should do to anybody on the road. But also, you finally get around somebody and they were causing a situation and you just stare at them. It's like, why I oughta, what are you doing there? It's just,
give them the evil eye.
Yeah, it's not going to be the best thing to do. It's engaging with somebody, again, where you don't know. And if someone's doing it to you, don't stare back. Don't wave.
Keep your eyes on the road, do your 360 scan. Don't give them the glare back. They drive by and they look at you and they glare at you. And it's like, let it go.
Yeah.
I mean, really, and I wouldn't give them a smug look and smile at them, or just keep looking down the road and don't reciprocate. Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So avoid the stare.
Yeah. So what if somebody doesn't disengage from you and you're trying to just let them go by and they just keep making it worse? They're getting on your bumper. They're pulling up to the side. It's getting dangerous. There's got to be something that we can do to help protect ourselves right there.
The easiest thing to do is take a different route. They're out in front of you, just make a turn.
Yeah. Now
they're gone. If they want to come around the block and try and chase you down, I doubt that. If they do, then you have a real situation, right? But just make a turn and say, well, that's going to make me arrive later. You'll arrive later then.
Right.
At least you're not going to even be involved in something, right? Just take a different route. Make a turn.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't suggest pulling off to the side of the road, because they may look at that as, oh, well, they want to get out of it. Let's go. They're throwing down. No. Make a turn where you can, now they're still going down the road and you're going a different route. So if you can, leave space whenever possible too, Bob. Again, I always say when you pull up behind another vehicle, you need to stop back far enough so you can see their tires.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody's running up to your car because they want to take you on, you might be able to pull out and get away. So again, leave yourself escape space whenever possible. Because if somebody is getting out, no, don't get out. stay in your car,
Yeah.
lock the doors, pull away. Don't engage these people. There are some just really aggressive people out there.
Yeah.
And in my previous employment, I dealt with a lot of them.
I'm sure you did.
You'd be amazed at the things people are capable of.
And how they justify it, and probably tried to explain to you like why they were right.
Yeah.
Well,
and
they cut
then,
me
you know
off.
what? Yeah. And you think at that point, they may think that that is the most important and egregious thing that they've ever had to deal with. But then when cooler heads prevail, they realize, you know how many times I've seen it in court where people are just like head and hands, like, I'm so sorry.
Mhm.
I don't know what I was thinking.
Right.
Right. So you don't want to get into those situations because people, I don't know, it just seems that people's triggers are just really, really thin right now. I guess that's not a good way of putting it, but just people are just going off flying off the handle here with the most little things. So don't engage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've talked about distracted driving and not using a cell phone while driving, but there's probably, a rare case that you would probably say if you had to, call 911, use your phone while driving. If you're in a situation where maybe you can't get off the road, you can't get off, take a different route. Is that something, again, with a disclaimer, if that's the best thing situation for you to do it?
Yeah, one of the few times I'll say, dial 911 if you're driving. If you have Siri, you can ask her to do it, but or him, whatever voice you have on your phone, I don't care.
Yeah.
But if you can say, "Hey Siri, dial 911," you can do that, or if you just hit a dial 911. That's one of the few times I'd say it's okay, using the phone while driving. If it's getting that dangerous, right? But you have to, again, it has to be pretty aggressive, actions towards you.
Yeah. Okay. What else? What if it's dark and you pull off? Where's the best place to go?
So what I always suggest is, find if you know where there's an area that's well lit and there are people, go there. Now you might have people, the aggressive driver might still follow you there, and I'm not going to say that's going to stop it, but it might deter them. So again, if you know where there's a well-lit area where there are a lot of people, go there. Or if you know where a police station is, go there. The example I always like to use, I was actually first department I worked for, I was just a kid. But I was working a midnighter, and I was in the station getting some paperwork done. And I heard this horn blowing, and it was a lady who had been being tailgated and followed by a guy. And she was actually driving around the police station blowing her horn. And I came out and actually made an arrest on the guy. He was just a guy who just, let's just say this, he was not mentally stable. So she did the exact right thing. And she went to the police station and was able to keep herself from being a crime victim.
Mm.
So if you know where a police station is, go there. If you have that, a person who's being really aggressive with you, that's not a bad idea.
You could probably ask Siri to find the closest police station as well.
You could.
Yeah. So those are all great things, great ways to avoid an incident. We talked about, we don't know what another person's going through. We don't know what their day is like. We don't know what they're dealing with. Don't really do this often, but have we ever reviewed a movie on a podcast? I don't think we have, but I just watched one that dealt with road rage. It wasn't the best movie ever. It was great. It was entertaining, but it really talked about road rage, and it did a great job of how somebody got triggered. They were having a bad day, what they're going through. The person was medicated. There was probably, something mentally wrong with this person, and that's why they're probably medicating more than they should. But the whole movie was really as a result of an incident where, somebody was sitting at a light, it turned green, and he just kept sitting there because he was dealing with his own emotional issues, and somebody honked the horn behind him, and it triggered him. And the whole thing was the result. The entire hour and a half movie was the result of that road rage. obviously extreme, but it does a great job of showing how people can get triggered. If you want to watch the movie, it is Russell Crowe. It's not the Russell Crowe of 20 years ago where he was a gladiator and fit. This is a 300-pound Russell Crowe. And Russell Crowe, don't please watch this podcast and yell at me or anything, because you could probably still kick my butt. But
he might be going to rage, Bob.
I know, right? But I didn't recognize him in the movie at all. But it was Russell Crowe. He did a great job. The movie was good enough and entertaining, but really just watching it from the road rage point of view, it's going to really kind of show exactly what we're talking about from an extreme point of view, but how it can happen. But with that, I mean, again, disclaimer, these are some best practices. These are things that you can do to protect yourself and how to avoid a road rage incident. But you need to make the right decision for the situation that you're in at the time. Everything that we say is not the be all end all. But if you can think about a few of these things while you're doing it, it may help you. So any last words on that, Phil?
Nope. Just be careful. Watch out for the other guy. Good, safe defensive driving will keep you out of a lot of this stuff. But if somebody does engage you, don't engage back. Best thing to do is just turn, go away from them. Maybe take a different route.
Get away from the situation. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay. Well, great. Well, I hope that everybody enjoys this new format where we have a video podcast. I think the audio will still be up on our normal platforms, but I'm really hoping that people can enjoy seeing the video version. And also, this is kind of a preview of the platform we're going to use with our special guests that we'll have for the safety policy series that's coming up. So we can, see all the guests that we're talking to. And obviously when we're having a conversation, it's just easier to be able to see the people that are talking. So that's nice. But the safety policy series is being planned. Looks like we're really moving forward, and it's getting excited. There's a lot of people who are involved and excited about it. So we're really hoping it's something that can help any organization that needs to strengthen or create a safety policy.
Right. Yeah, I think it's going to be good, Bob. And we have a few guests, as you mentioned, and I think it's going to be very insightful and helpful, hopefully.
Perfect. Great. All right, Phil. Well, thank you again for another great episode. I really enjoyed speaking with you about this. It's always nice geeking out with you on fleet safety. And don't drive selfish.
That's it. All right, my friend. Hey, have a good weekend, and we'll be talking.
Yeah, you do the same. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.